to Season 1, Episode 6 of Vixen, a Black beauty and pop culture podcast. If you enjoy what you hear today, please leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts. Today's episode follows Melyssa Ford, OG Video Vixen, and the reason why Instagram girls get to do all the things they get to do. Just joking, but yes, the original Video Vixen and the highest paid Video Vixen ever. Now, let's start the show. Melyssa Savannah Ford was born on November 7th, 1976 in Toronto to a Bayesian father and a white mother. Unfortunately, again, y'all, like in so many of my episodes, I hate that this is a common theme, but especially in the stories of video vixens I've researched for this show, there's not that much about their early lives and usually nothing before young adulthood, so I'm sorry, guys, but I couldn't find much on Melyssa in high school or before then. So I don't know much about her childhood, but I do know after high school, Melyssa went on to study psychology and forensic science at York University, which is also in Toronto. And she had dreams of getting a position in local law enforcement. She was also bartending on the side to make ends meet and support herself through school. So there's two versions of this story, and they both involve Director X or Little X. And if you don't know who he is, he's actually a protege of Hype Williams, and he is a music video and film director, a legend in his own right. He directed a lot of my favorite music videos. The two that really stand out to me to mention right now are he did Bootylicious by Destiny's Child. Love that video. Also directed Excuse Me Miss, Jay-Z. And most recently, he actually did the Life is Good video with Future and Drake, which I think is one of Future and Drake's best videos in a long time. So yeah, that is Director X. But the first version of the story is that in 1998, Melyssa got word of a local casting for a music video. And she showed up to the shoot, approached Little X, who was the director, and told him that he needed to put her in the video. And he was like, okay. And her career started from there. Other people say that Little X approached Melyssa while she was working as a bartender at a nightclub in Toronto and then put her in videos. But either way, however it happened, it definitely worked because Melyssa started appearing in videos very shortly after. The first one was for Glenn Lewis's video for The Thing to Do. Originally, Melyssa had no interest in doing videos full time because she never really saw herself leaving Toronto. Definitely wanted to stay in her hometown, and the Toronto hip-hop scene just wasn't very big at that time, which is crazy when you think about now with like Drake, The Weeknd, and everyone. But yeah, like it just wasn't much of a thing, so she was just like, I'll just do it as it comes. But a few months after her initial appearance, Melyssa was the featured girl in Cisco's video for the Thong Song. This is the extended video version, not the regular one where he climbs over everybody's booty, but it's another version that is amazing. I actually like the extended version better. And then she was also in Jay-Z's video for Big Pimpin'. So at that point, a lot of US-based directors start calling her up and requesting her. So Melyssa decides that it's time to take the video modeling to the next level, and she ends up moving to New York City in 2000. So before she knew it, Melyssa Ford became a staple in damn near every rap video of the early 2000s. Like, I could not imagine that you guys would not know who Melyssa is, just recognizing her from her name. But if you don't, some of her most notable appearances were, of course, Big Pimpin', the Thong Song video, Shake It Fast, Mystical, and Knock Yourself Out. I think that's the best one. I love Melyssa in that video, and I feel like that's the first time I saw her. Knock Yourself Out by Jadakiss, of course. And there's like a million more, but if I listed every video that this woman was in, we would be here all day. So, yeah. She also appeared in King Magazine, Maxim, Smooth Magazine. She actually had a sex column in Smooth at one point. She was in XXL in their eye candy section, and she was also Playboy's Babe of the Month in their April 2006 issue. So, y'all know the running thing on this podcast is we're keeping up how many times Sammy Davis Jr. comes up on this podcast. Now, he doesn't have anything to do with Melyssa Ford, but I thought about it. I'm like, we should also keep track of how many times we talk about Playboy, because I think Playboy is mentioned at least once in every single episode so far. So, like, Playboy is getting around too. So anyway, back to the story. So we're at the early 2000s at this point. Melyssa is being catapulted into stardom. She's living in Castle Hill, which is a neighborhood in the Bronx. She's living with her boyfriend at the time, but she's still bartending to make ends meet. If you guys have ever lived in New York, you know, like, having 2-3 jobs is very normal for you to live the way that you want, right? It doesn't mean that you're broke or you're not making money. It's just New York can be very overwhelming and expensive, so people will typically have like 2 or 3 hustles. Very shortly after this, Melyssa was able to completely quit bartending and sustain solely off of video appearances, appearance fees for clubs. She made a calendar that was selling very well, and she actually had a DVD that sales were doing great for her. So at one point, Melyssa was actually making 5 figures just for spending 2 days on the set of a video. So she said, if you've been specially requested by the director or by the artist himself, then I always say, be smart, be a businesswoman. My little trick has always been to try to have a behind-the-scenes mold telling me how the budget's being divvied up and what I can really get away with asking for. Most of these rappers want like 30 or 40 girls in their videos, and these days to find a video with a budget of over $500,000 is very rare. So, as Melyssa is rising up the ranks in the video vixen world, she's able to demand a lot more money and respect actually than her peers were able to do. This is like a sad fact. It's not my favorite, but like it's true, right? Like she was that girl. She was that bitch. So, I mean, she was kind of able to ask for more than a lot of other video vixens were at the time. And I think it's really important to note that Melyssa is super smart. She was definitely a businesswoman, and she was actually able to do this not only because she was in such high demand, but she also had created her own company and website to manage herself and control her own image. So her image wasn't being controlled by the videos that she appeared in or like what rappers were saying about her. She was really the first video vixen to kind of make herself a business. So that's why I said in the intro that, you know, Melyssa Ford is the reason why video vixens, not video vixens, we don't really have any anymore, but she's the reason why Instagram babes, Instagram models are kind of able to do their thing and charge so much money for like promo and club appearances, because she's really one of the first people to do things like that. So yeah, she's kind of the blueprint. So she was really smart about creating her own image and controlling it. This was a game changer because many other video vixens worked for management companies. There were a couple prominent agencies that video vixens belonged to, and they had to give a percentage of their earnings to those agencies, of course, or a lot of them just kind of worked independently without direction. I want to shift gears a little bit here and just talk about the quote-unquote video vixen in general. So the black video vixen is very different from the white video vixen. The black video vixen is the one that's in like the hip hop and R&B videos, and it's very different from the white video vixen in like rock and country videos. So in rock videos, there's usually one woman throughout the whole video. And a lot of older songs are like this too. A lot of black songs are like that too, where it's just like one woman throughout the whole video. But in like the 90s and 2000s, things started to change. Now in hip hop videos, there's usually multiple women or like multiple love interests. Like the artist might have one love interest for the first verse, and then it's a different woman for the second verse, and so forth. Or it's like he's pursuing multiple women in the same area, or there's one main love interest with a whole bunch of other women in the background, right? At this time, when Melyssa is gaining popularity, hip-hop videos were usually casted by directors and publicists placing open calls on websites like Backstage or in hip-hop magazines. Like at the back of magazines, you would see open calls. Typically, women were paid anywhere from $300 to $1,000 for filming, and this also went up depending on your notoriety and who you were. As mentioned briefly earlier, some women were sent in groups to video shoots from their agencies or management teams. That's why in a lot of videos, you'll see like the same, if you feel like you're seeing 4 girls that have been in videos a lot together, like one that I think of is like Tamika Skanes and like a couple other girls. Like I always saw them as like a group in videos, and I think it was because they had the same agency. Others just kind of worked independently, just answering ads, or they were requested specifically by the director or artist, which was pretty much how Melyssa was in videos. So a lot of women who participated in videos, even if they got to play the coveted lead role, a lot of them were never really seen again after that, or if they did book multiple videos, they weren't able to parlay it into a career. Only a select few, like Melyssa Ford, Buffy the Body, Gloria Velez, Key Toy, who was in the I Like the Way You Move video by Outkast, and a couple others were able to pretty much gain a lot of exposure from being in videos, and were able to parlay it into other avenues. And these were the women that were either requested by the artist or booked directly by the video's director. So there's kind of like a hierarchy here. So eventually, Melyssa hires Jeff Robinson as her manager, who was managing Alicia Keys at this time. He sought her out after seeing her in the Knock Yourself Out video, and he said to the New York Times in 2004, "We brought her down to New York and we found her to be so articulate, talking about how she was in school for psychology and forensic science. I said, this girl can put two words together, which is unusual for a video girl, to be honest." So, I mean, I don't know why he was thinking people couldn't talk, but I mean, it just kind of shows you like Melyssa was very different from the women around her. So, at this time, there's a growing trend of women being just as, if not more, visible in videos than the actual artists. So the women are demanding more, they're being paid more, they're being represented more, and they're not just showing up as background help. They're like the stars of the video now at this point. In that same New York Times article, DeTwan Thomas, who is the editor-in-chief of King magazine, said, "It's crazy how competitive it's become. Right now, some of these video girls like Melyssa are getting more face time than the rapper himself. I guess it makes sense. Who wants to see the same rap cat with the same throwback basketball jersey for 4 straight minutes?" He's right. Like, when I watch videos, especially at that time and when I'm rewatching them now, like, I look at the women and their clothes and their hair and their makeup. I rarely look at the men in those videos. So, yeah. Anyway, naturally, because men are jealous, sorry to the men who listen to this podcast, but y'all be hating sometimes, the comeuppance of the video girls left some people feeling some kind of way, naturally. In the New York Times article that profiled Melyssa, they also interviewed Adam Lublin, who was a talent manager at the time and is now a music executive. And I just want to say really quickly, we don't care about his opinion for real, not only because he's a hater, but also he is an alleged rapist. I Googled him and he going to jail, y'all. I'm not going to get into it, but yeah. Anyway, we don't care about his opinion, but this is what he had to say. "A few of these girls try to act as if they are the celebrity themselves, when in actuality, they're not much more than the background scenery. Gloria Velez came to my party at Atoil, which I guess was like a big club in Manhattan at the time, recently with an entourage of 15 people. I let them all in for free because she's cool and doesn't act self-important, but not because I actually think she's a star." He's obviously a hater, and that's why he's going to jail. Just kidding. But, I mean, like, the article, I will try to link it in my show notes if I'll find it again and link it. But basically, like, this quote is just so irrelevant. I don't even know why he was even mentioned. But if you read the article, what they're trying to get at is that Melyssa is, like, this girl who's demanding all of this money, but then they kind of clown her later, like at the end of it, because basically, I guess they interviewed him because they're following Melyssa around for this profile, right? And she happens to be hosting that night at some big club in Manhattan, and she had borrowed her outfit, like pulled her outfit from a stylist, pulled some jewelry from like a jeweler over on 38th, y'all know, the Diamond District or whatever. And then they actually even showed, like, they described the moment that she returns the jewelry to the jeweler. So it's like, I feel like they were trying to low-key clown her, but, like, not in a direct way. And it's just crazy that, they kind of wanted to make her seem like she was broke and not really who she was. It's like, men borrow jewelry all the time. Rappers borrow jewelry all the time. They're always getting sued for not paying jewelers. Like, so I'm just like, I don't really get why they were trying to clown her, but I just thought I'd, include that to show you guys, like, people were hating. They did not like that, video vixens were becoming stars in their own right. The person that always believed in Melyssa was, of course, Director X, the director that got her start in videos. In 2004, he actually predicted that she would be the first video vixen to make the transition out of videos and into movies and acting. He said that Melyssa would have to be the blueprint for how it's done, and I agree with him. So we talked a little bit about Melyssa being able to demand more money than many of her peers, and that was mainly because she knew that she was the most in-demand video girl around, so she made sure that she got what she was worth and then some. So Melyssa had certain rules. There were certain outfits she refused to wear. She only did videos that had lyrics that she didn't have a problem with, and she only worked with artists that she respected or liked, you know. She did not play about sexual advances from anyone on set. That's one thing that she holds very, very dear to her, and she takes it very seriously. And I've never heard anybody say anything about her as far as like sexual advances on set. Like, she seems to like really, really have shut that down. So nobody can say that about her. She actually said to People magazine in 2004, producers can push the envelope because we look a certain way and they want to exploit that. There are times where they bring me an outfit and I'll be like, hell no. There's a fine line between sexy and trashy. I'll toe the line but won't be exploited. I don't dance. My role is to look pretty and play the love interest of or sexual object of the artist. I'm pretty sure that Melyssa danced in the Shake It Fast video. I don't know. I thought she was dancing. Maybe she wasn't. Okay, anyway. So, you guys can't tell by now, it was really important to Melyssa to not come off like, well, a whore, for lack of a better word. Melyssa and the other video vixens were obviously heavily judged by men, but a lot of the judgment came from women too, especially quote-unquote intellectual women. Ironic, actually, especially now that we're witnessing how sex positive the feminist movement is today, because in the early 2000s, these feminists, they was not with the video vixen movement. I mean, we're going to talk at some point during this podcast about like the tip drill video mania and like a lot of other videos that kind of shook hip hop up a little bit, you know, with women and objectifying women. But anyway, hip hop feminist writer Karen R. Good wrote of video vixens. But as of late, many of hip hop's children have been playing the cheapest trick, depending on undulating female colored bodies to entice weak minds and compensate for weak rhymes. Or our bodies are used for verbal target practice. I am way past anger. Shock went out of the window with bitches ain't shit. Don't feel like being sad. I just wonder about the worth of a black girl. You know, like the difference between what happens when little white girls go missing and little black girls go missing. Or get raped, pissed on, that type of shit. That said, not one more lecture. I put my hands up. Man, if you want to swipe a credit card down the crack of a woman's behind, or miss, if you want to let your ass be the machine, fine. To each his own. The culprit is not hip-hop, which is undergoing a beautiful evolution, by the way. It's our reliance on the baser nature as opposed to the higher mind. Hip-hop is the thinker's form. Rap music at this time, please remember this, y'all, was kind of going through like a conscious movement. I feel like the neo-soul movement was kind of like coinciding with this. So people was saying some, you know, misogynistic stuff at this time. And I guess I get the sentiment of what Karen R. Good was saying here, but I just feel like comparing appearing in videos as a consenting adult, you know, as a love interest, to like children getting raped and kidnapped and pissed on, I mean, I just feel like that's a weird flex. I don't know about y'all, but you see the kind of mindset that Melyssa was dealing with at this time. I feel like if you sense some internalized misogyny from Melyssa, it's probably because of statements like this, you know? So I think that these types of attacks from black women to other black women who show agency over their own bodies and aren't being bogged down by the patriarchy are based more on trying to distance yourself from this stereotype more than actual disgust. So this is a condensed quote from Viewing Videos, Class Differences, Black Women, and Interpretations of Black Femininity. It was written by Adia Harvey Wingfield and Melinda Mills. Black women's discourse often upholds racialized, patriarchal ideas about sexual behavior. The research suggests that the images in rap videos can and do influence the ways young black women think about relationships and body image. They suggest that middle and upper class black women may adopt a politics of respectability, wherein they enforce traditional ideals about appropriate gendered behavior among themselves and working class black women as a way of offsetting pervasive cultural stereotypes about black female sexuality. By quote unquote doing difference in this unconventional way, these women reproduce multiple hierarchies of race, gender, class, and sexuality even as they strive to avoid being subjected to these stereotypes. So basically what that's saying is black women often have a politics of respectability that if you don't fit into it, you are going to get clowned, you are going to get dragged. I definitely think that women who are middle to upper class or just like have a little bit of privilege, they definitely tend to look down on other women. So I think that was what was happening a lot here. Very similar to if you guys listened to the first episode with Jennifer Jackson, the first black Playboy bunny. There was a lot of that going on in that episode too. So I think that was happening a lot here as well. To Melyssa's confidence and her being known as the highest paid video vixen in the room, she was constantly made to be the spokesperson for the industry. I don't know if she liked that or not. I can't really tell. But I feel like I would be annoyed if I constantly had to be like the person that's like, no, we're not all like this. So I don't know if it bothered her or not, but it would definitely bother me. In most of her interviews that I've read, I've noticed that she was asked often if she believed that she was perpetuating negative stereotypes about black women. Like that was a very common question that she got. And she would typically attempt to distance herself from the video vixen stereotype while adding in anecdotes about her on-set behavior. And she still does that today. Like, even in 2019 interviews, like when she's asked about stuff like that, she still makes sure to like, add in these anecdotes. Like, I wasn't like that. But that is probably, her defense mechanism because she was constantly being attacked. So she would say things like, it would be nice to debunk the widely held belief that video babes are just eye candy. I've met girls who totally fit the stereotype, but I've met others who sit quietly in the corner with university textbooks when the cameras are turned off. Typical things that people say when they're trying to separate themselves from other girls. In an interview with CNN in 2008, they asked Melyssa if music videos were demeaning to women, and she said, yes, I definitely have to say that. Another thing that was often pointed out in interviews with Melyssa is that her big break was actually her appearance in the Thong Song video. And Cisco actually created the second version of the video, the one that Melyssa was in, because he was allowed to be a little bit more suggestive and like more racier than the original video. I think he like produced it himself and everything. So this point was typically brought up to try to catch Melyssa up. Like they were trying to trip her up a little bit in like some hypocrisy. And even though Melyssa did agree with them that the video's depiction of women was questionable, she always defended her appearance by saying the premise was there are girls on a catwalk in costume and stiletto heels, and when they turn around, the costume is gone and only a thong remains. I refused to walk the catwalk. So if you've never seen that video, or if you have actually, she's talking about the catwalk scene where it's like a couple girls walk down the catwalk, they turn around, they show their thong, whatever, they look cute. In her defense, Melyssa is really only in the beginning of this video. Like she's kind of like the opening girl. She's wearing like a leather 2-piece pants set. She look good and she's riding a motorcycle, right? But she's not in that other part of the video that's a little bit more suggestive. So stills from this video are all over the Vixen Memoirs page. I love that video and I post it all the time. Or you can just watch it on YouTube, whatever's easier, but yes. So I think as women, we can probably agree that it's natural to internalize a bit of misogyny when that's what you're constantly facing. So we all have misogyny to unpack, all of us. Again, from reading and watching Melyssa's interviews when she's questioned about the industry, even the ones as recent as 2019, like I said, you can definitely see her trying to separate herself from the others, and it seems to stem from like a morality thing. I don't know. She's able to acknowledge how the industry exploits women, but she doesn't want to be grouped with those women at the same time. I don't know. If you have time, please read Vixen Resistant, Redefining Black Womanhood in Hip-Hop Music. Videos by Morali Balaji. I'm so sorry. I think I'm pronouncing that name wrong. But that essay is really, really good. I'm going to put a link to it in my show notes so you guys can check it out if you want. There's a quote from it. Bear with me. It's a little long, but here we go. In revisiting the interview, I noted another major theme, her perception of others in the same industry. By distancing herself from other women in the industry, she wants to be viewed in a different light. Her self-conceptualization differs greatly from her public image, moreover. She believes that her morality and dignity do translate into the video roles in which she has appeared. It is clear that her emphasis on morality stems from her hesitance to fully address the contradictions between her value system and the way that she presents herself to a mass audience. At different points in the video, she brought up morals, tradition, and education as ways to offset the perception that she is merely a sexual commodity. Ford's words, when contrasted with the image that she projects in music videos, show how structuralism and post-structuralism can be used in tandem. Although we can see agency in how she represents herself and how she defines herself, we can be aware that Ford becomes lost in a barrage of exploitive and sexualized imagery. I do feel like you can kind of tell in videos that Melyssa Ford is Melyssa Ford and like the other girls are video vixens, and you can kind of see a little bit of a clear separation, but only if you kind of know who Melyssa is. I do feel like all the things that she might have done to separate herself, her just being in those videos is going to group her in with all of that automatically. But anyway, back to the quote. Her individuality as someone who resists the male gaze must be tempered by the fact that she still is a part of, and in ways upholds, the patriarchal cultural industries. Melyssa Ford does not epitomize the experience of black women in hip-hop music videos, but she is a noteworthy example of how women in these contexts can assert a level degree of agency when it comes to self-definition. Moreover, Ford has been able to resist attempts to control and co-opt her sexuality, choosing instead to harness it for her sense of empowerment. So, to sum all my feelings about this up, she had absolute agency over her image, but her eagerness to separate herself from the other women around her wasn't necessarily because she was the queen bee and was on top of the bad bitch hierarchy here, but I do feel like she was just kind of trying to get rid of the negative stereotypes about video vixens and show that these women are not a monolith, they don't all have the same personality, which is definitely fair. The video vixen industry started to grow more and more as more women became inspired by Melyssa to dive into it. So her firm stance on how she was represented couldn't really last long in that kind of world where girls are coming in every day. And as time went on, video vixens started to do more for less, if you know what I'm getting at. So in an article for Vibe called The Death of the Video Vixen, which is ironically written by Demetria Lucas, who would eventually become Melyssa's co-star, but we'll talk about that later, the shift in the video vixen industry was discussed. A condensed quote from it. The recession hit and video budgets were slashed, allowing thirstier women to do more for less pay, ultimately saturating the market. So popular vixens that once demanded 5 figures for a day's work were suddenly being offered hundreds, or worse, disregarded for a never-seen-before PYT. No one outside of the industry cared what the women were paid, only their wet dream worth. I don't like that. I don't like that quote. Anyway, but then in 2006, Corinne Steffens, aka Superhead, wrote a book, Confessions of a Video Vixen. Her account of being disrespected on the set and passed around from rapper to rapper read more like a horror story than a fantasy. The following year, The Game released his single Wouldn't Get Far, which further downgraded the vixen aspiration. Of course, women still modeled in videos, but even twerking in a thong couldn't compete with exceptionally attractive women who were willing to give fantasies full transparency. End quote. So we'll talk about Corinne Steffens and The Game in a minute, but basically this article is saying that the recession and transparency on social media, the writer is referencing the surge in celebrity sex tapes and nude leaks further down in the article, stuff like that, led to women being more thirsty to be cast in videos, thus leading to the industry's downfall. What do you guys think changed things? I'm curious. I mean, I don't know about the recession made it that way, but I do think that Corinne's book definitely was the initial blow, and then things started to go downhill as visibility became a little bit more important than getting paid to certain people. And also at this time, CDs were becoming a little bit more obsolete. That could have had something to do with it. People were starting to stream more, I believe. Music wasn't selling how it used to. So record labels probably started giving their artists smaller budgets for music videos, which of course would decrease the salary of a video vixen. Directors at this time, because there were budget cuts, a lot of directors and artists actually started sourcing girls directly from the strip club because it was cheaper. Overnight, girls went from making $5,000 to $10,000 for a video to like $500 for a video. So that's a really, really big decrease, right? So I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about the book. Y'all know the book. Confessions of a Video Vixen by Corinne Steffens was published in 2005. So the book was basically a hip-hop tell-all. If you've never heard of it, I cannot imagine that you guys haven't. But it's basically a tell-all calling out the whole industry. Now, it's been years since I've read this book, but correct me if I'm wrong. From what I remember, it was mainly about Corinne's personal conquest with people that she met on set or through friends or at parties. I remember there not being a whole lot of insight on what the actual sets were like. And I remember being a little disappointed because I was looking for more like inside information on what the set was like. But I feel like it was just kind of like her personal sex life. But anyway, a lot of people do credit the book's release with the fall of the video vixen industry. In 2018, BET started showing a documentary-style show that was also called Vixen, like my podcast, that interviewed video vixens like Melyssa, Buffy the Body, Gloria Velez, Yara Sanchez, Corinne herself was actually on it, and more. So, of course, they talked about the book, and Melyssa said, there was already this backlash towards video modeling, video vixens, just music in general for being misogynistic, and then this book drops. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I thought that she was an urban myth. I was like, where the fuck was she? Who the fuck was she? Those experiences that she highlighted, those were her choices. We were all lumped into a category, and it was incredibly frustrating to be defined by someone else's actions. Interestingly enough, Corinne really was only a video vixen for about a year, and I believe most of her conquests actually happened outside of that time. So, I mean, it makes sense that all of the women, and not even just Melyssa, almost every woman in that documentary said that they had never seen Corinne on set. They didn't know who she was. And I would say, it's fair for them to be like, that wasn't an accurate depiction of the video vixen industry. I mean, she just wasn't there that long. Let me know if you guys want an episode on Corinne, by the way. That might be a 2-part episode, though, because she is a lot. Like, that woman is a lot. I like Corinne, though. But, yeah, that woman is a lot, and I would definitely need to read her book again and probably read the follow-up. So let me know if y'all want a Corinne episode. But Melyssa did also say something else that was kind of shady about Corinne. I thought I would include it. She did give her credit for defining herself, but Melyssa also said that Corinne saw dollar signs at the end of the tunnel and used her sexual experiences to get them. She also said she has a sense of ownership of who she is. She has no problems admitting she's a whore. I mean, honestly, Corinne kind of is a sharp shooter. I like that about her too. But anyway, there were a couple things that contributed to the downfall of the video vixen industry that made it less lucrative, and it can't all be blamed on a book. Melyssa, luckily, was smart, though, and had been branding herself outside of the video vixen persona way before the industry started to tank. While she appeared in videos, she had small acting roles in the TV version of Soul Food, Platinum, which was actually good. It was only on UPN for 1 season, though. She continued to get acting gigs throughout her career. She was in Playmakers, Entourage. I think Nicole Narain was also in Entourage. She was on The Game, and she was in Think Like a Man and Think Like a Man 2. She also was the host of BET Style and How I'm Living, another BET show. I don't really remember that show. I feel like it was that show that was kind of like MTV Cribs, but a BET version. I don't remember, but yeah, she was the host of both of those. So in 2009, Melyssa actually became a celebrity ambassador for Hennessy, every black person's dream. And she actually went on a 6-city tour with them. The next year, she co-wrote the 4 Vixens Who've Considered Homicide When the Video Was Too Much play, which focused on the stories and the struggles of video vixens, of course. So now on to the game and the damn song lyrics. So in 2007, The Game comes out with a song featuring Kanye called Wouldn't Get Far. Although I do love this song mainly because of the Kanye production, it's very misogynistic and it's just kind of like, mind your business. Like, so basically The Game spends like 3 minutes of his life name dropping and bashing various video vixens and actresses, calling them out and calling out girls for wanting to be like them. So it's basically a diss track to a whole bunch of people who didn't even do anything to him. But anyway, there is a lyric where the game goes, all these new bitches trying to be Melyssa Ford, but they don't know Melyssa Ford drive a Honda Accord. She a video vixen, but behind closed doors, she do whatever it takes to get to the Grammy Awards. End quote. Okay, so although a lot of people are name dropped in this song, he mentions Gloria Velez, who appears in the video for some reason. I don't know. Maybe she needed to check. I don't know. Gloria Velez, Gabrielle Union, Megan Good. He says a lot of women's names. And Melyssa actually says to this day, like, the lyric about her is the one that really stuck. And she's right. I remember that lyric, but I don't really remember the lyrics about the other women. So I am inclined to agree with her there on that one. In an interview with Madame Noir in 2014, Melyssa says that DJ Clue called her and said, "Did you even diss the game?" And she's like, "No." And he says, "You know, so you never turned him down?" Melyssa's like, "No, why?" And DJ Clue was like, "Well, he put your name in the song." So Melyssa's like, "Send me the song." And when she heard it, she thought the line was funny. And then the song started to gain a lot of traction, and the lyrics really got blown out of proportion. And she actually says that the song lyric ruined the relationship she was in at the time, as well as hindered her career because of all of the gossip. She said, "It caught on like wildfire. It spread like a virus. Oh God, it was horrible. I swear to God, I wanted to kick him in his fucking throat." I mean, I definitely feel like the power of the video vixen was fading at this time. So people were already looking down on women like Melyssa and Gloria Velez. But because they were already being met with so much criticism, it was probably even easier for everyone to pile on to them at once. And it didn't really help that Melyssa wasn't as talked about at this time as she was previously, so it was definitely a blow. I mean, the game actually ended up personally apologizing to Melyssa, as he should. And let's add that Melyssa had been to the Grammys before that song came out, and she never had a Honda Accord. Actually, at the time, in her words, she was driving a champagne-colored Benz at this time, so I don't know where the game got Honda Accord from. So, fast forward to 2014, Melyssa starred in the Bravo series Blood, Sweat, and Heels, which followed a couple women on their creative journeys in New York City. The show included Demetria Lucas, who's the writer from the Vibe article that I referenced earlier, Bri Blythewood, Mika Hughes, Daisy Llewellyn, R.I.P. to Daisy, and Geneva Thomas. So I absolutely loved this show, mainly because all of the women were creative. They were bloggers, stylists, writers. And I lived in New York at the time, so I just watched this show faithfully and just loved it. On the show, Melyssa's storyline was that she was trying to break into the real estate industry, and she was trying to break free of the video vixen image. And the show was actually pretty transparent about Melyssa suffering with, struggling with a couple of financial issues. And it really probably didn't help the stigma after the game lyric, but I did really like that she was transparent about that. And a lot of people talked about, like, you made all of this money and you blew it, but it's just like, if you lived in New York, I feel like you can relate. Like, you spend a lot of money in New York just on, like, living and surviving. So, I mean, I can kind of see how someone can lose or, you know, just spend a lot of money, especially if, like, you know, your business is, you know, your appearance, and keeping up your appearance is expensive. But, yeah, I mean, so also on the show, she had a running beef with her castmate Geneva. I don't really remember why. I need to rewatch the show. I need to find it somewhere. I just remember them getting into a lot of arguments, and neither person would ever back down. Melyssa would never back down. Geneva would never back down. In the second season, the two of them actually end up throwing hands this time, and Geneva hit Melyssa over the head with a bottle. I don't think they aired the actual bottle hitting her, but the beginning of the argument was definitely aired. Melyssa pressed charges and refused to film with Geneva afterwards, and then their castmate Daisy unfortunately passed away from cancer, R.I.P. Daisy, and Bravo canceled the show. I was really upset when the show was canceled. I liked seeing a show like this. I feel like a lot of reality shows about creatives get canceled. I don't know if people think they're boring or anything like that, but I really liked Blood, Sweat, and Heels, Gallery Girl, shows like that. I don't know why they always get canceled, but anyway. So unfortunately, in 2019, Melyssa was in a serious car crash on a freeway in LA that left her seriously injured. An 18-wheeler merges into her lane and kind of hits her from behind and gets clipped to her tire somehow. And the impact made her car flip 3 times. So Melyssa is incredibly lucky to be alive. There are photos of the scene, and they are heartbreaking. Like, they're awful. She sustained a skull fracture, bleeding on the brain, severe cuts on her face. Luckily, she has, recovered. That was a scary moment. Beyond all of the tragedy and hardships, though, Melyssa really has parlayed herself into a media personality. In 2016, Melyssa became the co-host of Hollywood Unlocked, which is a hip-hop and pop culture radio show. She's been on there for a while, but she recently announced her departure. And she also has a podcast called I'm Here for the Food. She seems to be doing very well now, very successful, but unfortunately her mother passed away recently in 2020, RIP to her mom. But yeah, Melyssa seems to be doing well. Say what you want about her, but she definitely contributed to the self-agency that women in hip-hop are now allowed to have freely. Like I said earlier, like just with the Instagram models and like the things they're able to do with like the hosting and charging for Instagram promo and all of those things. Like, I don't know if that would have happened the way it did without people like Melyssa Ford, because it seemed like a lot of video girls just kind of did it for fun or just to make some extra money, but they weren't really thinking business-wise about how they could parlay this venture. So I don't really know if the Instagram babe thing would have really popped off without people like Melyssa Ford and people who came after her. What do you guys think? I don't know. I don't think it would be as much of a business without her. But in many of her interviews, Melyssa says often that it's vital that Black women assert agency in how they are represented on screen, and they have to fight to keep the distinction between an on-camera image and the one held outside the industry. She said, you've got to learn when it's time to fall back and where you've got to play the game and reinvent yourself. I love that quote, actually. So yeah, that is the Melyssa Ford story, y'all. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I know this was a long one. I want to end on this condensed quote from an essay by Gwendolyn Poe. It's called What It Do, Shorty? Women, Hip-Hop, and a Feminist Agenda, because she asked some questions that I think we should talk about more. And she says, what does it mean that hip-hop has the capability to make a woman a superstar sought after by magazines and video directors based on solely how she looks? And how does this further complicate our understandings of how Black women respond to things like the ideal beauty image? Does the influx of other kinds of beauty, meaning Black and women of color, into the mainstream disrupt the norm? Does it simply add yet another impossible ideal for women to yearn for that now makes women of color, particularly Black women, vulnerable in ways that they haven't been in the past? So my only answer to this, I got to flesh out my thoughts a little bit more. But, seeing Black women in all spectrums and videos was nothing but a positive for me as a child. Their looks, their demeanor, their makeup, their style, everything about them influenced me as a young Black girl and made me want to be more confident. And I still take cues from them to this day, like with makeup and hair and fashion, everything. I started this podcast because I was watching videos with an ex-boyfriend last year, and I don't really watch music videos as much as I used to. And when I do watch videos, I'm watching older ones. But I hadn't really seen a lot of like today's music videos before. So he was showing me these, and I'm like, wow, I don't see any women in these videos that look like me. I don't even see anybody that I can really even identify as Black. And I think about that because I have nieces, I got little cousins, and I'm like, I can't imagine like looking at today's popular culture and looking at the artists that you love and they never have women around them that look like you. And I know how impactful it was to see women like Melyssa Ford and like Pasha Damadas and like a bunch of other women in videos for me and having that representation. So, I just thought that was really sad that I feel like a lot of younger girls don't really have that experience. So I definitely wanted to start this podcast to shed more light and give people their flowers and show Black beauty in multiple forms. So yeah, I definitely think that, it doesn't really complicate, I guess it could complicate our ideal beauty image as far as beauty standards for Black women, but I don't think there's anything wrong with representation. I think that Black women are the blueprint. So, of course, our presence disrupted the norm. I mean, everybody copies us. I don't know. This is a lot to unpack, and we can definitely expand on this in a later episode. But I'm curious to know what you guys think about these questions. Do you think the presence of Melyssa Ford and other video vixens made Black women vulnerable in ways that we hadn't been before? Or do you think their presence empowered us and was necessary for the culture? I'm curious to see what you guys think. So that's Melyssa Ford, y'all. That was a long ride, but it was really fun. It took me a while to do this episode, so I hope y'all like it. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. I know this one was a long one, and as always, thank you for listening to Vixen. If you liked today's episode, please feel free to leave a review. They're very, very helpful, so please leave one for your girl. Follow us on Instagram, connect with us. We got a little community going over at the Vixen Memoirs on Instagram, so come over there, talk, say hi. And if you have a submission or any comments, anything like that, feel free to email vixenpodcast@gmail.com, and I will be back next Wednesday with an all-new episode.